So the next speaker will be Leslie Forbes. So we'll just do a quick swap over, and Leslie will tell us all about Nessus and Tenable. So hang in there, or just get a quick drink and come back, and we just hook it up and get cracking. Okay, we're continuing with Leslie Forbes of Tenable, and he will tell you all about some history and then onwards. So please give it up for Leslie Forbes.
Hello, everyone. Yeah. So, some of you I might know, some of you I might not. Excuse me, but by the end of this, I think you'll all know me. So, yeah, I'm Leslie Forbes. I'm a product manager with Tenable. I have been with Tenable for about 10 years. Who knows Tenable, by the way? Everyone now. Why do I even come here then? So, for the beer, yeah, that's the best answer. Right, so I'm not here to talk about Tenable. What I want to talk about is really where Nessus came from, why it's there, and why people love it so much. So I think that the fact that Nessus passed its 20-year birthday, some time ago, is a really good testament to what Renault created way back. So in fact, Nessus now is older than what Renault was when he wrote it. So that's kind of it's a very interesting way of looking at the perspective of it. And what I've sought to do is just try and go through, some of the interesting aspects. Just a quick focus on what got it going, and then to finish off, where we are right now, and how we're going forwards with Tenable. Now, for some reason, this clicker thing. Oh, there we go. So, where did it all start? In France, because Renaud de Raison is a Frenchman. He lived in France. He studied in France. Went to school in France, and still speaks like a Frenchman. Every time I hear him, he sounds exactly the same. And while I was busy doing the research for this, I listened to some really, really old podcasts. And his voice back then, so 15 years ago, still the same as it is today. So yeah, really interesting. So he was studying way back. He had felt, he was at college, wanted to learn a little bit about Unix. He had discovered this fancy thing called Unix way back in 1995. But he felt he was young enough and there was lots to learn from. And by about 1998, he'd started figuring out, there's some really cool stuff around there. Unix is really cool. The fact that you can have multiple users on a system and all be logged in at the same time and do things, as opposed to, Mac OS, which was, single user and so on. So he just figured out, there's things to learn. He'll go and learn how to do some programming. And, if you've got a multi-user system, you'd like to make it secure, wouldn't you? So that's kind of what the background was. Satan, of course, was around at that point. Not the Satan or the Satan. Satan was the security scanner for networks. But it really didn't work all that well. And that was the sort of backdrop to what he did to create what we see in this email. And this is kind of what it looked like in the old, I don't know if that's X-Window or GTK or whatever it was, but that was the sort of output. And it's a far cry from what we've got today with all of the fancy stuff. And I suppose I should walk that direction. Don't even talk about the Flash interface, because I know that people loved it. So that's some of the background. But why? Why even make something like this? So after trying Satan, the security administrator tool for something, analyzing networks, I think it was, he just felt, what scripting tools were around back at the time, and that included Perl and other things. There just wasn't something to solve the problem of auditing a remote machine. So version 1, which was referred to in that original email, was written in C. He went to learn C programming. But the problem was that C is kind of very clever at tripping you up, and you can do some very terrible things with memory and get seg faults and all those kind of fanciness. So he decided to write a kind of a scripting language, and that was where Packet Forge came from. Packet Forge was the first attempt at creating a mechanism to forge packets. You know, what a clever way of calling it, Packet Forge. So initially that was an interactive shell, so you could tell it, I need a packet that looks like this, and effectively that was called by the C program to say, hey, make a packet that does this. You know, so this is the specially crafted packet thought process. And that was created simply to get the objective of creating packets in order to put on the wire and go and test things and get certain responses back. In other words, creating a protocol interchange with the target. So with that in mind, that kind of went okay as a new language, and that was essentially the origin or the genesis of what we now know as NASL. So this is kind of why I'm talking about NASL there, Nessus Attack Scripting Language. And over time, so this is like back in 1998-ish, over time, NASL has become a very structured language, a structured scripting language with different functions and all those kind of really fascinating things. And the coolest part about the way that Nessus worked together with these NASL scripts was that the scripts themselves didn't then have external dependencies. You know, so if you were installing on a system, and it was open source back in the day, and if a plugin writer wanted to come and write a certain plugin, and he had a penchant for some kind of SNMP library, then submit that to the project, and then somebody else comes along and then doesn't use that same SNMP library. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to have to fetch that. It just creates too many dependencies. So that's kind of why the generation of Nessus and NASL took on this approach of scripts, or plugin scripts rather. So the other really cool thing was that if everything is, let's call it housed within a plugin, having the ability to control where error logs and errors within functions and errors within the plugins would come straight back to the scanner. They wouldn't error out on the machine itself. So it's a nice, cool way of tracing, backtracing bugs. And the one cool thing, so I think it was like version 1.0. Yeah, so in the original Nessus, there wasn't even the ability to do SSL. Now, the really nice thing was that when version 2 came along, the addition of SSL just meant changing the engine, and not one of the plugins required any changes. So, for example, it was as trivial as saying, well, let's build a function inside of the engine that when it recognizes that there is a socket that it's connected, or a port that it's connected to, that it would then simply recognize that port is talking SSL, and would then create an SSL socket. And of course, then all of the plugins can then follow suit. So that's one really, really good example of why the structure ended up the way it did. And by the way, this plugin, I probably can't even point on there. The plugin code that I've put on there it happens to be SNMP, just complete coincidence. And that was one of the early plugins. Back then, plugins were written in C, and the stuff had to be compiled. Now, if we just jump forward by a good couple of years, the structure of plugins is pretty much still the same. It's still kind of C-esque. Who's looked at plugins recently? Who looks at them? Who writes them? No one? Oh dear. Okay, so plugins are really easy to write. Plugins are really easy to understand. And you don't even need to know C, to be honest. But the essence of what I'm trying to say is that they're still written in much the same way, and they're still compiled, but they're compiled on site, as it were. So you download the plugins as plugin code, but within the scanner, once the plugins are downloaded, it'll then compile them into bytecode, and then they'll get executed within the context of the scanner. So roll on a little bit of time, and we have 2002. Now, the year before this, Ron and Renaud had met at Black Hat, and Nessus was gaining a lot of popularity. So this is like 4 years after that original email, April '98. Jack, who's the one at the bottom, he was running BizDev at Interisys, and Ron on the left there, he was the creator of Dragon IDS. So anybody who's that old and remembers some of the early IDSs, Dragon was quite popular back then. Ron was the creator of Dragon, and Interisys had seen the success that network security wizards were having with Dragon, and said, let's buy this company. And in the process of that, they got to understand one another, and they said, hey, look, there's a common goal here. We can do this at an enterprise level, and we can go and secure networks. And Ron said, hey, but I met this really cool guy you would all know Nessus, and he can come and join us. I'm pretty sure that he would be interested. So they got together, and they found that there was a lot of common values there, and that was the origin of where Tenable started. So it's almost 20 years since Tenable has been going. So that kind of puts a little bit of picture onto the slide. And the other interesting bit was that already by that point, Renaud had started Nessus Consulting as a company in France, providing support for enterprises, I guess, who wanted to use Nessus as I'm not even going to say commercial, but in a commercial environment. So there were a couple of things that really helped them to get going. Anyway, time rolls on, and at this point, Nessus was a client-server architecture. They had done some really cool stuff. People had built additional clients of their own because, they could talk to the Nessus server, and all the code was wide open and open source. But the interesting thing about what happened in 2005, late in 2005, was that the source was closed. There were books written on it already by this point. So big had the community become. But the problem was, from a Tenable point of view, because remember that this is now a Tenable product. And by the way, what I didn't mention was that the basis that Tenable was formed on was to provide enterprise capability and use Nessus at scale. So simply, in order to provide for a real big enterprise, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of IPs, to be able to scan that regularly, you would need to have an enterprise console rather than just a single Nessus scanner going and doing its thing, or what I commonly used to call a scanner in a briefcase. Now, the problem was, so that there were customers. Tenable had natural customers in this enterprise scale, but some customers just weren't able to, or permitted is probably a better word, to install Nessus. Why? Well, because it was open source, and open source didn't have any kind of legitimacy in large kind of like government organizations and so on. And even today, lots of the US government does not permit open source stuff. It has to be supported by a proper, valid corporate contract. Anyway, so they felt open source software unreliable, no traceability. So that was one of the driving forces of closing the source. and moving it to a proprietary thing rather than GPL. So why did Renault start with GPL anyway? Simply because that was the order of the day. You know, all the blokes like Red Hat and so on were all doing GPL licensing. So, you know, it's just a kind of a matter of historical aspect. One of the other things is open source software from a commercial point of view is kind of difficult to support. And Nessus was a really good example of that, because in its own right, it was just an application, right? And it was bundled in Debian, it was bundled in all sorts of Red Hat distributions. So, you know, there was the .deb files, there were the RPM files, and all those kind of various different ways of installing stuff. And their packages would package, you know, it in a certain way. And if it breaks, well, then you've got to first find out, why is it broken? Is it the Debian version? Is it some other kind of version that is the cause of the breakage? So taking it proprietary was another good reason to want to, you know, bring some structure around it and have, you know, like a single source that was authoritative. So the other problem with Nessus was that it was much more than just a software package. Remember that there has to be research behind it, all of those plugins to do various things, you know, HTTP, what do we call those things? Banners, you know, looking at FTP stuff and looking at all the protocols and trying to figure out when there's new vulnerabilities coming out. Somebody's got to write that stuff, right? And the community was more of a community of users than a community of contributors. So that was also one of the sort of decision elements that brought Nessus to the point where it was going to be a closed source. And of course, most people would know by now that there was this branch at that point, and that's where OpenVAS, you know, became a thing. So not that I'm here to talk about that, but that was just kind of like a side thought that really we should be, you know, considering. And one of the other things, you know, in a normal development environment, because now we're at Nessus 3, you know, all the plugins that we're adding have to be relatively compatible with version 2, because, well, there's people still going to be version 2, there might have been still people on version 1. And in fact, when I joined Tenable, I'll come to that in just a sec, when I joined Tenable, that was 10 years ago, so 2010, there were still people using the version 3 server thing because they liked the client-server architecture. But anyway, it is what it is. So, you know, bringing proper software development practices to software costs money, and that was another reason why, you know, putting structure into it actually made a lot of sense. So I've made a point there that this was the first time that I got to interact with Nessus, and I didn't really know it at the time that this was going to be, you know, where I would eventually work. But I was working for a antivirus organization, and I had just taken on my first role as a sales engineer, and, you know, all this thing's rosy, and I'm really excited to go and do some work. They had bought a mail scanner, you know, anti-spam and all that kind of thing, but it worked on Unix. Not that there's anything wrong with Unix, well, Solaris actually. But we said, all right, who are we going to sell this to? This is some of the best technology that we've got in the anti-spam industry. This was way back 2004-05. How are we going to sell this? So I said, well, you've got to find the biggest customers, right? They're the guys who's got deep pockets. So I was in the UK then, and, well, I'm still in the UK, but the UK was our sort of hunting ground. And I said, all right, well, let's scan the FTSE 250. You know, so that's the 250 biggest companies that are public in the UK, and find out which of them have got Unix mail servers. That's really a simple thing to do, right? Because everything showed a banner, and you could tell whether it was an Exchange server or whether it was something else, postfix or whatever. So I went searching for an application, and I found Nessus, obviously. And I used Nessus to go and probe every single mail server and give me a result. Is this thing Exchange or something else? So really cool data acquisition tool, and I still regard it as a great data acquisition tool. Anyway, let's carry on. So as time goes on, then we had to now make this big announcement saying this thing is going to be some really cool development, and there's a lot going on. We need some testers, and by the way, this is now going to be closed source. Now, does it actually say it on this particular screen? I think it does. Explain the roadmap.
The next page.
Yeah, there you go. How did you know that was going to happen? So yes, that was the key part of Renault's message was, yes, this is still carrying on. We're commercially enabling people to use some of the best research going on. This is going to be now version 3. The whole engine has been rewritten and is more than twice as fast. I think that was on the previous page. More than twice as fast as the previous engine. So there's really, really cool stuff going on here. But everybody thought this is crazy. Why are you closed sourcing this? It's supposed to be free. Software is free. Can't do that. But the evidence is that was probably one of the best decisions that Tenable ever made, because of the amount of effort that we've managed to put into it continuously. So the latest release that has just gone out is version 8.9. And I don't even know how many developers are on it. I'm going to make a quick guess, 15 developers. Actual developers, and that doesn't count researchers. So that could never, ever have happened in an open source world. And it would never have become what it is without having that capability. So with that background in mind, it just meant that we could build proper life cycle. There could be proper support for it. People that buy the license could then get proper support. It's very structured. There could be training programs because it was repeatable, and all those kind of things were really, really borne out in the years after that. So it's worth pointing out that at this point nobody's talked anything about money. The software was still free, right? But it was closed source. So I'm just trying to think, like Adobe Reader. Adobe Reader, well, that was a really, really bad example. That's what happens when you do things on the fly, right? Don't go there. But yeah, so I mean, there's plenty of free software around. You don't have to pay to do certain things. Mozilla Firefox, I guess, is a really cool example. But yeah, so Nessus was still free at this point. Now, let's kind of, whoops, that was way too quick. That was not supposed to happen like that. So let's kind of just get accelerated a tiny bit. By this point, we're moving into the sort of 2005 timeline. What did I say? So that was 2005, the previous slide. So this is all of what happened like 2005 to 2008. And every single version had a very specific goal. Like I said, version 3 was, obviously to close source it, but the actual functionality was, let's rewrite the whole kind of engine so that it makes better use of memory management and the aspects of how it uses plugins. So with that in mind, there was already, I think probably a couple of years before this, was when Newt. Did anybody ever use Newt? Yeah, some people did. Okay, so Newt was Nessus for Windows technology. And Newt kind of sounds like this tiny little thing, like a Newt is. But anyway, Nessus for Windows technology, because it was written proprietary by Tenable and not kind of open sourced in the original. And by the way, one thing which I omitted to mention at the beginning was version 1 of Nessus was compiled for PowerPC. Yeah, and that's kind of because Renault was a Mac person. He still is a Mac person. He still is an Apple guy. But yeah, that kind of puts a very bit of an interesting hue on what the origins of it were. But bear in mind that at this point now that there are 2 branches of Nessus to maintain. There's one for Nessus, one for Windows, and there's one for Unix. And that kind of caused a bit of pain. So one of the next versions, I think it might have been version 4, was to try and unify that code base so that everything that was developed once and then compiled for Windows and then compiled for for the various unices. And even things like like SMB, for example, was built in different ways as time went along. So there were specific times where SMB version 1 was in the way back, was in one of the early versions way back, and there are various levels at which just introducing things made a lot more sense. So just one example of why it's really cool to have a single code base is that when you write a plugin, say, to go and execute a certain system call, you would want that to be uniform across all of your different operating systems. Whether it's find the time, find the network IP address, or whatever it is, you would want to have that consistent in the plugin, but different execution in various platforms. And that's kind of why having a unified thing together with all these. Anyway, the reason why I put this screenshot out of one of the presentations that was in Tenable way back then was just to illustrate what the prices were. And that $1,200 price back then was consistent right through until when I started at Tenable in 2010. Anyway, why I'm pointing out these couple of things was that at this point, things were, well, how would you put it? Tenable was experimenting with how the licensing would work best. For people who are, let's call them hobbyists, people that like to use Nessus at home, would still be able to get the plugins, would still be able to get the software for free. Remember I said the software was free? The idea then was, let's have a feed which is delayed by 7 days. So, the home guys really don't care that it's 7 days out of date compared to, well, me as a commercial customer saying, I need yesterday's plugins now because, there was a vulnerability published yesterday and I really, 2008, that's configure. So I needed the configure plugin today, but configure still exists. Anyway, so that was just a way of illustrating. By the way, Nevo was a really interesting product that had already made its face shown by then. That was the passive scanner. Network Vulnerability Observer. Really cool stuff. Anyway, so let's move on. And yeah, anybody who's used Nessus, anybody who's had to put a report out knows this thing. Anybody who's had to read a report will also say this. Right. So this kind of leads me on to kind of where the output really starts being useful. So the thing about reports is everything that Nessus does is just like automation, right? So you need to kind of find a way that all of that huge amount of data, by the way, a single scan can be megabytes long, full of data. But we want to have that in a succinct report. So reports were created. Original form was an NSR or NBE, everybody knows that. Excuse me. But it was a single volume for a single line, and it made it difficult to, share between two different systems, or for me to show you what I've done, or for me as one part of a pen test team, and join that together with data from multiple. So that's when the Nessus, the .Nessus format came along, and the object here was to try and put structure into this thing. And it was an XML format. Yay! XML, the best thing since sliced bread. Unfortunately, that has stuck with us. So the idea behind the XML was to say, well, let's put some descriptors in here. What scan was run? What plugins were in that scan? Which plugins actually executed? Those kind of things. So there was a lot of complexity here, which meant that this output can tell me exactly, if I'm an analyst, can tell me exactly what it was that you set up your scanner to go ahead and do. It would also list what all the targets were. So if you wanted to scan an entire class C, 192, 168 or whatever it was, you would be able to put that in and you would see that that was the target. And this here is the list of actual live hosts that came out of it. So, the one problem with that structure was very simply that, pardon me, that everything was flat, pretty much. So it was just a chunk of text, and if the scanner was able to, let's just say, enumerate a list of firewall rules or a list of netstat output or whatever it was that it was capable of doing, that would just be bundled in with that thing. So being able to then add tags afterwards is what really, really helped to bring a lot of structure into the. And by the way, that is still happening today. So recently, maybe early last year or year before, there was a bunch of tags added into the the .nessus format to say, well, this is the first time it was scanned. Was it scanned with credentials? What else do we know about this host? There's a lot about CPE values in there and so on. So tons and tons of things. So as time went on, then more and more and more people just began to use Nessus. The past 10 million downloads, way back. Right now, I don't even know how many thousands of people actually use Nessus, and the downloads are just phenomenal. So this is kind of the evidence of it is the penetration into more than 140 countries. So it's got a huge footprint, a huge community, a huge following, and it's just certainly made it one of the top security tools in the last 20 years. So it's still free. It's still free, even despite all of the what we refer to as relentless innovation. And for me, being an employee inside of Tenable, it even looks relentless because every couple of months there's a new release coming out. So I've just wanted to try and highlight. This is just a corporate slide that I pulled out, but what I want to try and highlight are some of the things where you can see where Nessus has made a dent in the corporate face. So just one example is CVSS3 was added then in 2016. I suppose it was created in 2015, but IPv6 was a really cool example. And a lot of people still in the more recent years say, does Nessus support IPv6? Well, you should know that because you should be using IPv6 already. But anyway, I'm not here to talk about IPv6 and why it should or shouldn't be there. Now, so things like adding malware scanning, adding system auditing, that's been in for a while. One of the really cool additions was the ability to do offline auditing. So you could take a start run config from a Cisco device and shove it in there, and it'll say, yeah, this will pass muster. One other thing which I thought about was patch auditing. So everybody knows that it's able to do local checks, and it'll enumerate what all the patches are that's been applied to a Windows machine and so on. That's all cool. But how about being able to point it at a Windows machine and simultaneously point it at a SCCM server? And let the SCCM server say, well, I know about this patches on this machine, and I'm going to go and audit these things, because remember, Nessus is black and white. If it finds a file there, it's there. You can't argue with the fact that a file is there, and you can enumerate the versions on files. So what happens then is the scanner comes along with this data and will remove all the bits that correlate and say, oh, look, these things are different in the Nessus scan, and these things are different from what the SCCM tells me. Really cool stuff like that has all been added. So, jump forward another couple of years. Oh, and by the way, I don't need to really tell the whole story, but one of the features that was added was a very simple conversation that I had with Renault, and we had a customer asking us to implement something with a C. The name's gone from me. Centrify. So Centrify provide this capability to merge Windows and Unix on the same network, and Centrify provides this kind of glue between the Active Directory and Unix. So obviously this customer had Windows and Unix networks, and they said, oh, well, does your scanner do this? I said, no, I don't think so. DZ-do is really cool, sounds really cool, but we do sudo. That's the industry standard. And they said, well, we use DZ-do. I said, well, okay, let me go and speak to Renault. So I spoke to Renault and he says, nah, I don't think so. That looks too complicated. Our SSH library is really complex. So long story short, I went and had a look at the code, just looked at the the Nessus file, and this looked really simple. Just duplicate this because, well, DZ-do turns out to be a binary replacement for sudo. Does exactly the same thing. So I told Renault, and he went away, and the customer went away and came back like 2 or 3 months later and said, hey, about that feature, is that still being in development or whatever? So I said, well, I don't know. Let me go and ask Renault. Hey, Renault, what about that DZ-do thing? Did you get a chance to look at it? Oh, he says, that was committed in the feed 2 weeks ago. Sorry. That's kind of how he develops things, just like that. Whiz bang. So these are some of the newer features. Anybody think that anything here that they haven't seen before? So live results, pretty cool, really. The thing about live results is it allows you to store metadata about what you collect during a scan, such that when you review that tomorrow and you've got an updated set of plugins tonight, those plugins can infer that you've got a vulnerability on such and such a machine simply because of the enumeration that you've done yesterday. That's pretty cool stuff. So where we're going with this, there's a lot of stuff on the go. Some of the stuff relates to Nessus Manager, by the way. That's not really Nessus itself. We're starting to talk about how you deploy this stuff at scale. So large customers who use Tenable IO, for example, which is our cloud platform, still need to use Nessus inside of their networks in order to go and look at machines. So there's a ton of things going on there. We're looking at how we package Nessus. We've long had Nessus as the pre-authorized scanner in AWS. There's always been the BYOL. And we're starting to look at GCP, Azure, HH20, that's the Nutanix hypervisor. We're going to go there. We're even talking about ARM. Who uses ARM? And I don't mean Raspberry Pi. I only learned about this last week, by the way. So ARM is one of the latest things that's gone into AWS. And it's really cool. It's like mini versions of M4 instances and so on, but for really quick scaling of machines. Anyway, that's kind of where we are. This is what drives us to do what we do as Tenable, as a business. And I'm really grateful that we've had time to... We're up, aren't we? Yeah. So really grateful we've had time to talk about a couple of things and just kind of illustrate what the real big background is of Nessus, how it came to be where it is, and it's still there. It's still a long way to go. And thank you for your time and attention.
So, thank you so much, Leslie. If people have questions, can they come up to you?
Yeah.
Okay, so please
Not that I can answer them.
take this opportunity to talk to the Meister. So thank you so much, Leslie. We'll do a quick swap and we just go on with Brenno's talk about planes falling from the sky.
Brains.
Nee, laten we lekker beginnen.
Okay, people, please give it up for Brenno de Winter.
Yeah, good evening. I would like to talk about why we have shitty software, but before I begin, I need some help creating software. Next year will be MCH again, and I'll be the harbor master again. But if you look at ships, they still have old-fashioned computer systems. AIS, the transponder systems, they're old-fashioned and poorly designed and over-the-top expensive. We've got HackRF, we've got Raspberry Pis. So I'm starting up an open source project to create our own board computer. And if people don't have VHF radio, that we give them 27MC, because it's just as simple. So I need some help with that. The project is called Ben Hero, after my cat, the one with the dark hair, and of course I'm here in Dutch. Then I can start with my talk. And there is this Dutch saying that what you don't know can't hurt you or doesn't hurt you. But what I would like to say, and I'll explain the cats at a later stage during the talk, they're very important. The one on the right-hand side is my Chief Information Security Officer, and the one on the left-hand side is my Data Protection Officer, because if you work at companies that have people that don't know what they're talking about, can I at least have cats, to advise me? But it's a Dutch saying to say, what you don't know doesn't hurt you, why should we care? And that attitude actually, I think, is very dangerous. That's basically the premise of my talk. So I would like to take a look at our own IT industry, and I'm having a couple of notes because there are a lot of details that I want to share. And I want to start off by saying that in January I went on summer holiday to Tenerife with my wife, and we were on Air Europa because they've got this great 787 flying to Madrid. It's huge, it's perfect. The only downside was that the meters gave different readings to the computer than the factuals. So the pilot told us we have to restart the computer. And they did, 9 times. And we left 2 hours late. My wife said, thank God they take safety so seriously. I haven't really said that much during that flight. It gave me back a memory I had a couple of years before that on a Delta Airlines flight. We were waiting for departure, and we were then rolling up to the runway, and the pilot said that the onboard systems told him that there was a faulty flap, what you really need for landing and stuff. So we went back and they replaced the board computer. We rolled up to the runway again, and the computer said there's a faulty flap. So they went back again and replaced the board computer. And at that point I realized, sometimes binary information might actually be right. So I decided to get off that plane to see in the news the next morning that the plane did leave and on takeoff lost a flap. Keep this in mind for the rest of the talk, because it's kind of important. Let's go to a different industry, our industry, the ICT industry. And I'll take you back to the year 2011, when DigiNota was hacked. And some of you will remember the certificate that was roguely issued, wildcard.google.com. Handed out by DigiNota. It was one of the first incidents ever being investigated by a transportation and safety board. And basically, it said the boardroom has no knowledge of IT, and they have got no feeling how seriously an incident can be. For those who were involved in the incident, one way or another, it was very clear. If you can issue one rogue certificate, how many others could you have issued? A dozen? Million? Basically, it undermines everything we do. What does it mean? I mean, who's using it? It turned out that Iran was using the rogue certificate to spy on their own people, or on a part of their own people. It's so that is what we learned. A month later, I organized Leaktober as a lesson, because there was a hearing in Parliament. You saw my picture there. There was a hearing in Parliament where I said there's a structure that we basically do not recognize of bad software, bad procedures, bad dealing with IT. And most members of Parliament thought that was bullshit. So why not just show it to them? So I invited people to basically show data leaks that have a consequence on privacy. And the results were enormous. There were 600 and so many reports of leaks in only 1 month. So it helped. Well, so at least we thought at that point. Until we had a couple of other incidents. For instance, a data breach at KPN, where the password turned out to be girl power, where it, for Did You Know, there had been prod admin for production administrator. At, for instance, a hospital, the Groene Hart ziekenhuis, where the password was green 2000. So you have a vague idea when they last changed the password. But of course, more recently with WannaCry, one of the many other incidents where we have seen, of course, poor software management. All the incidents had non-patch systems and very, very, very poor segmentation of networks. So, looking back at all these incidents, we keep making the same mistakes over and over again. This is one of the images made by Kaspersky back in the days for NotPetya. And this was, I believe, 5 minutes after the initial breakout in the Ukraine. Every country that is marked red is basically a country where they had an infection 5 minutes later. Something tells me segmentation is still an issue. Now let's go back to other industries and see how they were doing. And some of them know this is a big thing for me because boats are important to me. But if you look back in history, before we had steam engines, basically the reason why a ship would succumb was generally a storm. And huge number of people would die. And ships would break, that type of stuff. And over again, we figured out that, we crash for the same reasons. Then we got steamboats. We started to move a little bit faster. And with steamboats, all of a sudden, we discovered we had new incidents. The speeds are higher. And for instance, when entering a port, we had no clue where to put our ship. On the left-hand side, on the right-hand side. Of course, nowadays we know port side and starboard, but back then we didn't. So there were many incidents. And we kept making the same mistakes over and over again, until the Dutch and some other countries said, let's seize this. Let's have some basic traffic rules. For instance, when we, at a smaller segment, we go starboard. We in the Netherlands have the Rhine, and the Rhine moves into Germany up to all the way to Switzerland. And at some points it's really a tight crossing, so if you go on the right-hand side, starboard, then basically everything goes fine. We try to export that knowledge. We tried to go international, and we failed. Basically, we failed because we had this company called the White Star Lines, that basically said but these type of rules, we don't need it. We don't need uniform rules because that would really corrupt the level playing field. And we didn't. But, and this was, by the way, the Brits. I don't want to say anything about the Brits who said we are against it, but it's just a fact, and it's important for the example I'm just going to make. Then, at a certain point, we started to build ships that couldn't break anymore. So you can go into storms, there's not really an issue. And there was this one interview in the New York Times And some of you might remember this person by any chance, Captain Smith. He later would turn out to sail both with the name Titanic. But let's just go. And basically what he says is, you know, technology has evolved so far, it can't break anymore. Just as we say when we make a new software product. Well, the story is quite well known. There was just this tiny little error. As soon as you hit an iceberg, it turns out ice is cold. Metal will shrink, the ship will be flooded with water and ultimately break, even though it's an unbreakable ship. Well, that's not quite true. We have the opinion the ship broke. The official report still says the ship sank as a whole. And that's for a very simple reason. All the people, the hundreds of people who were around the ship, we basically decided to say to them, you know, you're a little bit confused. You think you saw it break, but that's impossible. We've decided it's impossible, so it can't be. And of course we did, after the incident, learn a couple of things. One of the things is we need to have rescue means for everybody. So everybody has a life vest, everybody can get to a boat, everybody basically has a fair chance of surviving. When we communicate, that was really an issue with the Titanic, we speak one uniform language. There was a big misunderstanding because there was a difference between the US and the UK. The one would use Save Our Souls, SOS, and the other one would use Mayday. So they didn't really appreciate the full value when somebody calls for help. And if you have a radio, you have to listen to it. Basic things we know because we had an incident and we decided to learn from it. And one very important thing, if we know that icebergs might be an issue, we try and locate them and put them on a map. And we still do every day. We got this treaty called Safety of Life at Sea. Now looking back from a risk management perspective, we say the Titanic is a black swan. It's such a unique incident that back then we couldn't foresee if something would go awry so badly. And in the IT industry we claim the same. One of the fun things is right now in Amsterdam, for instance, the city of Amsterdam, they've got Windows 7 and they didn't get to, change that to Windows 10. Why do they have Windows 7? Because back in the days, when Windows XP was already out of service, they weren't in time to upgrade. And why did they use Windows XP? Because when they were phasing out Windows 95, they weren't in time. We keep making the same mistake over and over again. And then we had Citrix recently. And we decided to turn off systems in the Netherlands. We made a big thing out of that. The fun of it is, if you turn a Citrix system down, basically your remote access is gone. And that brought me back to the story I told you a little bit earlier about DigiNotar. When we turned that off, we all of a sudden realized, okay, there was no plan B for certificates. It's not that hard to fix that, but we didn't. And it turned out we didn't have a plan B for Citrix. So we had a new Dutch word, a Citrix traffic jam. We keep making the same mistakes over and over again. And then you can say, okay, but we can do risk management. Well, we're not really that good at that. And last year I gave a whole talk about the Kaspersky case, so I won't repeat it. But basically, the whole story was, we don't trust them because we dislike the name. We don't know how to prove it. We don't know how to disprove it. So we don't know what we're talking about, so let's stop using it. Long story short, that's basically what happened. So we're not really good at that. Let's bring this knowledge to other industries. I told you, I went on holiday to Tenerife. And the worst accident in air traffic ever was at Tenerife. Basically, long story short, that's what I keep repeating, but my time has been cut short a little bit. Long story short, a KLM flight took off when it shouldn't have taken off, miscommunication everywhere, and at the end it crashed into a Pan Am flight, and I believe 534 or 84 people died. Very serious accident. Terrible. Bad communication, bad procedures, and a lot of things because of that accident changed, but still, at least that's what I thought. A lot of things changed. Last summer, I was in Lithuania. And what they did, I went on one of those balloon flights, and at a certain point, the pilot decided to go up. And I was really sure there was not a balloon above us. So I told him, and he went like, well, let's ask. And he started to talk in Lithuanian, and he waited for a couple of seconds, and he went like, nope, no answer, nothing wrong. Thank God, by then the other balloon was a little bit faster, so I could point to him, and what's that? And later on it turned out his radio was off. Bad communications. But what made it really interesting, that at a certain point I heard English language. And I went like, what's that? Oh, that's the airport. So you talk Lithuanian among each other, yes. What if there is a plane somewhere around here? Oh, they're not permitted here. Bad procedures, we keep making the same mistakes over and over again. But there is one thing that we have learned from these type of industries, because there are multiple, and that's the failure mode effect analysis. It's also part of Lean. It's basically looking at risk from a different perspective by just asking yourself the question, how can this go wrong? And what we do is basically, in the Netherlands, ignore that. Because in a lot of countries it's intensively being used, but we don't use it in the Netherlands that much. And that means that at a certain point we have a hard time understanding how problems can arise. So let's now combine the two industries, flying and IT, and let's talk about the 737 MAX. Boeing is a commercial company, just as Airbus is. And they wanted to be better, to be able to compete better, and especially with the new series, the Neo series, that are a little bit bigger. So what they did, they took their number one plane, the 737, and made it bigger. Because of that, and because of some infrastructure with the plane, they had to place the engines on a little bit different place. And because of that, the aerodynamics of the plane changed a little bit. It had a nasty habit of sometimes doing this, and basically if you do this with a plane, you crash. And that disrupts the flow of your day, so what they did, they fixed it in software, because if aerodynamics can't do it, let's try it with software instead. And they built a system called MCAS, or MCAS. And basically what that system would do is push the nose down as soon as it detected it went into stall. And how do you detect it went into stall? Because of all the equipment you have in the plane and the signals you get into your computer systems. So if the computer says nose down, it will go nose down. And now as a special feature, we will not tell the pilots. And why would you tell the pilots? Because exactly, as soon as you have to tell the pilots, you have to train that there is a system. And you have to train them, that means it's a different plane than the planes they are used to and certified for flying. So if you need to get new certification, you're not competing with Airbus anymore, because you can get in a lot of Airbuses with a certain certification and fly different models. So the software will fix this issue. Now what happens if your computer gets the wrong reading with the MCAS system? It will push your nose down. And the pilot will not understand why. And it happens to be the case that especially during takeoff, there are several situations where exactly this will happen. And why is takeoff important? Because the time you have to figure out what the fuck is happening with your plane is a little bit shorter. And also that, of course, hinders the also that hinders the flow. No. The flow of your day. As a result of this, of course, questions are being raised. How is it possible that certain regulators missed this? Especially the American regulators. Well, because they don't know jack shit about software. They know about aerodynamics, they know about planes, those type of things, but not about software quality. And if you were to look at software quality, what would you find? What's the uniform standard to build high quality software? Exactly, there isn't. We don't have it. So we deliver stuff to an industry that has a total set of different rules, and we say like, oh, don't worry about it, it's software, you can trust us, it will be okay. And of course, the European regulators started to distrust the American regulators, and it's a very interesting conflict right now. But hey, for me not to worry, because I wasn't on a 737 MAX, I was on a Dreamliner. A Dreamliner is also a very interesting plane. It had a very interesting bug recently. It turns out that if you don't reboot the computer systems often enough, at certain points your entire systems might just hang up and you have to reboot the entire system. No matter if you're on the ground or in mid-flight. Now, if it's a software industry, how would we deal with vulnerabilities? Let's say we'll take an American security researcher who lives in Amsterdam, like Chris Kubeka, and she finds a bunch of vulnerabilities. Well, the first thing Boeing did, sue her, start to threaten, start to, make her life miserable at least. And of course, when things go public, you go shout things like, we sincerely appreciate the time and effort that went into Ms. Kubeka's research, and we take the concern she raised seriously, as we continually work to enhance the cybersecurity of our IT systems and products. As DHS itself has recognized, none of the issues Ms. Kubeka identified are unique to aviation. Do I need to finish or? What happened in the mindset is that they moved from being aviation to being a software company and see the results accordingly. There's a second security researcher who found some issues with the entertainment systems because some of the source code of the 737 MAX and I believe the 787, but don't shoot me if I'm mistaken on that one, he found them on an unprotected FTP server. And he made some remarks about it, especially since the entertainment system was hooked up to the airplane using a UTP cable. But of course, that couldn't be abused at all. And recently we found out that also the rockets we sent into space, when made by Boeing, have sometimes a bunch of vulnerabilities that are really breaking the flow of your day. So this is all the more recent part, right? Wrong. For the Dutch among us, remember this crash? Remember the news that was recently there? That it turned out that there was a second part of the report that has not been made public, where apparently the data flowing into the computers was at least, and let me be very careful to say so, but at least had some influence on the proceedings of that day when this plane crashed. We write software basically based on the expectation that everything works perfectly. And in reality, software always fails. Back to my trip to Tenerife.
That's not you.
No, that's not me, that's my wife. She was at least having a good time. So what you don't know doesn't hurt you. In her case, maybe that was indeed for the better, because there's little you can do as soon as you have taken off. And I decided, for the sake of my marriage, not to share the worries I had and not to spoil our holiday. But looking back at all the things and the readings, and there is something definitely wrong in our industry, and we are really lacking the standards and the quality in software to really be able to deliver software to these type of industries. I could have picked the healthcare as well. I could have picked so many other industries. But really what we do is we don't have any set of basic standards that deliver a high quality, and say with the lack of that we still want to enforce our rules on their industries. And maybe we today can make a change by saying maybe we should stop doing that. Because what you don't know can actually hurt you. We should really start to work a little bit more risk-based. And time again, we see that if we, especially in the security industry, we like to do that, go secret, things are going to get uncontrolled and we will get hurt. Later this year, or actually later this month, I'll start a podcast together with BNR News Radio, and I'll say this in Dutch because it will be in Dutch. It's called the Onderzoeksraad der Dingen, where the only issue will be how does software fail. So again, my cats. Hero is my Chief Information Officer. Below there is Brani. She's my Chief Information Security Officer. And Kaiko is my Data Protection Officer. Because again, if we keep putting people in important positions with lack of knowledge, I think my cats do a better job. So having said that, I would like to open up the floor for a couple of questions, but these are the points that I really wanted to share with you, and I really hope that you will help make different decisions, because we are in a position that we can do the right thing or point towards the right thing at least. Any questions? Did I offend anybody? Oh, Mendel.
Should we stop using JavaScript now?
Should we stop using? Yeah.
Should we stop using JavaScript now?
Yeah? Ja.
Wat vind je van alle overheid en DNB ondergebracht bij Centric, waar één persoon de dienst uitmaakt volgens een aandelenconstructie?
Raising the question, but let's take it away from Centric alone. But no, let's take. How can we get to a position that this is possible? You know, with a lot of other industries, would have been totally unthinkable. And now it is basically we have to move on with these type of companies for the basic reason that we just can't move away like that. It's a nightmare, but it's one of those not a signatures that there's something totally awry in our industry where we at least should start to make a difference. And it shouldn't be about Centric or another company, but indeed if something happens with quality that is unacceptable, you should be able to move easily away. So you need to talk about who owns software, what open source, open standards, those type of things to have at least some safeguards for the bad day and at least to be able to move away. Now it's still possible that we have a supplier that makes backup mistakes, and you can't update the software you're using. And at that point, when you have like a very expensive machine, you have to make the decision. And I had an incident a couple of months ago where this exactly was the case, where you have to make a choice. Do I use a crappy machine, or do I throw away millions of euros? So yeah, this is a very fundamental question.
Do you think that everybody should be able to write software, or that it should be a licensed profession?
It could very well be that everybody is able to write software as long as you've got standards and you can throw away software, and we really do our due diligence. But as soon as you raise the question, for instance, with the Kaspersky case, one of the questions I raised is, if you don't distrust them, why don't you check the software? And then you go like, yeah, that's too much work. Yeah, because our industry is not, making an effort to do so, and we're not training the people to do all the due diligence. That's not the issue of the company in question. That's the issue of us as society failing. And then you get a lot of people in the security industry, especially in a city close to the sea, with a lot of politicians in it, where they say, but if you start to check software, you might still miss things, so there's no point in doing so. This is really what they say. That is where the real issue is, in my opinion. What's in the water there? Yeah, good question.
Well, very much still a question that I think is a very relatable one to this one is, do you think that actually the politicians in this whole scheme of, for example, having like singled out companies that are responsible for a lot of software within our municipalities, do you think that those municipalities or those customers of those software actually should speak up as a whole towards like suppliers in order to change the behavior that they actually currently are doing right
Yes,
now?
I do think so, but I don't think it will happen, because in the Netherlands we've had multiple investigations where basically the conclusion is that the politicians don't know anything about the IT industry and they don't care. So if it will happen, it will come from Europe. It will not come from The Hague. So that's an issue. And with all the bullshit with cyber and all these marketing terms that we keep using, we shy away from the real discussions that are really important. Or the general remarks, like recently somebody saying during a lecture, yeah, it's an arms race and we'll never be able to win because it's an arms race. Well, Misha, you and I are a lot at incidents together. Hardly ever do we find a root cause that is, and with Mike as well, that is really unique. It's always, old software, the whole thing, all the things that I mentioned, those are the things that we find all the time. The only thing that is a rat race is the exploitation of those weaknesses. So let's stop saying it's a rat race, because it isn't. It's not having the basics in place. It's basic hygiene for the most of it. And yes, there will be a risk there where we can say that might be a rat race, but at this point in time, I hardly ever see that.
Yeah, in this case, do we need much more entertainment-based things like Citrix and NotPetya and things like that?
And that, absolutely.
To resolve this with politicians, or do we need to be more activistic and send them, I don't know, mail bombs or other information campaigns?
No, I don't think mail bombs will do it, but the way we are activistic and, pointing out and making it look ridiculous is, I think, very important, because it's one of the steps, but also, of course, grow up. And if I may give another example, in Europe we now are getting the Cybersecurity Act. I haven't read anything in the media. It's a big change coming up. But in the Netherlands we are going like, no, we've got our own standards, we've got our own world. In May, the healthcare industry will have safe email. They've got a whole whole standard for it. I'm happy with the basis, but the thing is, this is Europe, this is the Netherlands, and then we pick one industry, and there we are going to fix a problem. What's wrong with this picture? That needs to change.
So you called a few industries that are doing not the good things, and that all have things to improve. Is there a gold standard where we should achieve to reach that? What industry is doing the good things?
Well, actually, if you look at shipping or you look at the airlines the aviation industry in general, they hit the right movements, and in a lot of things the standards were high, but as soon as software gets involved, we tend to forget that. So, in transportation we see a lot of good examples, and I'm not against every risk. The only thing is that we are failing so big. Because we are trying to push our marketing way of looking at things on the rest of the world, and that just doesn't work. So that is really the issue.
Last question.
I read also something about Boeing, that Boeing took over McDonnell Douglas, but in fact the management from Boeing was taken over by the management of McDonnell Douglas, and they went from a safety and technical driven company to a financial and commercial driven company, and that's what often happens and leads to problems and even disaster.
When things gets corporate, they get sometimes corrupted. Yeah, that's definitely what I see as well. It's not that I'm against Boeing. I just noticed that it is very visible there at the moment. I don't know where we will be in 5 years' time. Maybe Boeing might be a leading example of a company making a change. For now, the only thing that I just observe is as soon as software gets involved, things fuck up, and we don't. And we don't train the people to do the right thing. By the way, where Air Europa ultimately decided to leave, because otherwise they had to cancel the flight. It's a business economic decision. And on a positive note, beer.
Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the last talk of the evening, and Edwin is going to talk about tales or fails from the trenches. So please give it up for Edwin van Andel.
Whoa. Hi, welcome. I'm Edwin. And I was asked to do a talk here late at night, so I said, yeah, sure. And then he said, what talk are you going to do? And he said, oh, fails from the trenches. And I said, okay, I've done that on KPN. And then I found out today that a lot of stuff I used last year here, I put in the KPN talk I did last week. So I came here and I thought, that's not good. So for the last 2 hours, I've been like this, trying to get myself together and trying to get a slide deck for you that I hope will be funny and that will get you through the night to the, what's after me? Big pub quiz or something, right? The computer quiz. So I hope I will get you there. I've got, I think, 110 slides in 40 minutes, so we'll see. Anybody under 15 as always? No, probably not. If you have nightmares, talk to Dimitri. It's his fault I'm here. Who am I, Edwin? 1970s. It's a shame I missed Waterstock because it was on old computing. I love old computing. I pushed a lot of buttons, of course, played with the old modems. Lost a lot of floppies. When your mother picked up the phone, you know the whole stories. And now I work at Zerocopter, where we combine all the hackers we can find, the best ones, and hack the shit out of everybody. So when you do that, you get a lot of fails, a lot of good things, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about my life. What do I do during the day? Well, basically this. Everything, nothing, flying, talking to people, having fun at conferences like this, so I'm very happy to be here again, of course. If I have spare time, I'm a member of the Guild of the Grumpy Old Hackers. I don't know if you know it. It's basically grumpy old hackers. Easy. And we try to help younger kids to go the right way. So if you find a database with credit card information, please don't use the credit cards, please don't sell it to criminals, but report it to the company where you got it, and maybe you get a t-shirt, stuff like that. We help them. Dutch Institute Vulnerability Disclosure, of course. I think you will hear a lot about this later on, probably. No? Yes? Of course, yeah. David A. over there. And member of the Cavalry. I hope you know it. If you don't, please look it up. We can use all the help we can get. We try to help medical device manufacturers, automotive manufacturers to be more secure. Be aware that a lot of stuff there is nasty. We had a talk with a car manufacturer 3 years ago, and we said, we can hack your car because of the devices in there, and we can even steer the thing. And they say, yeah, we know. And we said, well, if you know it, why don't you fix it? And they said, well, it costs too much money. I have to get all my cars back, can't fix it remotely, so it will cost me too much money. But what if we kill somebody with your car? And then you get the brilliant answer, oh, we just paid the deceased family. So if you're up for that, please join the cavalry and help us make the world a little bit more secure. But you're not here for that. Let's try to do some work. I hope I will make it and do a bit of fails. And of course, we have fails, we have questions. What's this? Come on, people. A new challenge? No. Who said old? Oh, sorry, in the back. Oh, my mic is gone. No, it's there. This is old. Did I kill it? Yes. Fails. Sorry? It's back. And then it kills. Oh, nice. So if I don't want to, you don't want to hear me, I walk over there. Yeah, just point in that direction. So this is old. This is 2000. And anybody know what it is? No? It's a directory traversal. And I think everybody knows what directory traversal is, right? You just do a little bit of dotting, some slashes, and you walk backwards in a web route. Basically, that's it. Then why, in 2019, do we have the same shit? It's fucking 20 years ago. 20 years ago for the first directory traversal vulnerability, and now we're having the same shit and everybody's hurting. It was this easy for the people who didn't know it. Just a couple of dots, a couple of slashes, a couple of directory names, and you can get whatever you want. It's sad. We should fix this shit. And when you look up the CVA database now, because I thought this was bad, just a month ago, Juniper got the same thing. Why? Come on, people. We should fix shit like that, right? Phil, correct? I think it's a fail. All right, some funny then. This, what's this? For the Dutch guys. It's questions asked in our cabinet. And do you know where these questions were about? Nope. Yes! You get a shirt. Yep, it's that easy. There you go. It was this lady. Questions in our cabinet about this lady. It's unbelievable. You know who she is, right? World's best hacker. 30 years. Everybody here knows her. Everybody loves her. She has given new definition to air-gap networks. Do you know what it is? Airbag networks. We should adapt stuff like this, you know? And she also said, and everybody probably knows this, that every hacker has an app on their cell phone. If they walk to an ATM, they get money out of the machine for free. Everybody has this. So raise your hand if you have it. Oh, I will talk to you guys later. I will. I think you still need a drill. Come on, man. A drill, Raspberry Pi, USB key, it works. But some ATMs, I travel a lot, I take pictures of ATMs. Some are a bit more easy, like this one, for instance. Unbelievable, right? And the other one was also fun. The more beer we drank, the harder it was not to pull the plug on that thing. It was very, very tempting. But as you know, she had the solution. So whatever Brenno was telling you, you can fix it with... That's it. We need this in our life. Do you know, she reminded me of this guy. Do you know this guy? Guy Goma? If you don't, please check this YouTube video. It's so awesome. He came into the BBC for a job as, I think, a janitor or something, for cleaning. And he was waiting in the room for his job interview, and then somebody ran out and said, "Is Guy here?" And he said, "Yes, I'm here." And he is escorted to the television, and he was interviewed on Apple iPhone security for 10 minutes. You have to check it. It's really fucking awesome. Really awesome. But the best thing in die Kamervragen, in the questions that were asked to cabinet, was that there was a term in the document that I really, really love, and I think we created it. 4 times. 4 times it was in there. Sorry, Charlton. 4 times. It was really brilliant. Good cyber, bad cyber, right? Okay, so if you bash somebody, which I just did, I shouldn't. I should also bash myself, right? And I do a lot of talks, and I was giving a talk, I think 2 weeks ago, at the, I think you call it a municipal, a gemeente. Yeah, all right. And it was Waardhoeken, and I had a talk for all their members working there, all public servants, and no computer security idea, a lot of people, and they said, make it so that it's close, because at Waardhoeken we are a personal, close, and online municipal. And they sent me a PDF doc, and I thought, how can I get this close? So I looked at the PDF metadata, and there was a name in there from a lady. So I Googled the lady, and there was a lot of information on the lady, even in the telefoongids, which is our dialing instrument, blah, blah, blah. So I had her phone number and her street address, so I had her house, and I had her husband, who works for a very long time, by the way, at Achmea, and I had his mobile phone number. And while I was doing this, it hit home there, right? But there were also some people doing this. And I was also, okay, maybe I should be like this. And it turned out the lady had just been divorced. So putting her husband on there was not what she really wanted for the whole of the, of the municipal. So I'm sorry, I won't do it again. Luckily, I'm not the only guy or girl who fails, right? We have one up here. This guy, you know this guy, Chris van Hoff? He does Hack Talk. Do you know that? Hack Talk? It's really cool. Really cool. It's a show, and then I think he did it every month, and now he's done it every quarter. So he was thinking about, okay, I should put out new flyers. You have seen them down below. But he was drunk when he pressed print. So they're brilliant, but the date is wrong. In his drunk, he just copied and pasted the old format, put it on a new one, pressed 1,000 copies, please, and then figured out that it's the 20th and not the 30th. So thank you for not failing, letting me fail alone. Thanks for the commercial. Yeah, there you go. All right, BNR, Brandon was also talking about the radio station. They asked me sometime as well, and one time in Privacy Week, they asked me to come there and to check on their employees what I could find on the internet. So I did that, and there was a lady there, and I couldn't find much about her, basically nothing. So it was really cool. So I talked to her in the studio live, and I said, well, you're really, really good, because I couldn't find anything, just that your husband is Mark or something, and you have 2 kids, Jantje, Pietje. And she said, how do you know that? I said, well, it's on your Facebook. And she said, I don't have Facebook. I said, yes. And then there was a riot in the BNR office, because BNR makes Facebook pages for their personnel. It was fun. The other guy was easy to find, by the way. It was very, very easy. But I was talking there about, for instance, the LinkedIn database, right? Everybody knows the LinkedIn database. LinkedIn hacked 2013, a lot of passwords still being cracked. So if you look up somebody, you can find it over there very easy. So I talked about that. I talked about how big the database was. I talked about if you want to see if you're in there by the time, you had to look at have I been pwned. So it was a good interview. It was tweeted a lot, etc. And a couple of weeks, I think a week later, there was news from another news agency. And they hacked some Twitter accounts of Dutch politicians. And they did it because they found the LinkedIn database. So they listened to my radio speech, and they used that to hack into Twitter accounts. And I was like, wow, that's a bit nasty. So I looked them up and said, yo, I think you have to fix some shit yourself, because their LinkedIn accounts were public. And they were pissed at me. Why? That's fucking stupid. You fucking fail yourself, right? Don't do shit like that if you don't know it. And right, we hackers, yeah, we think differently, correct? No. Of course not. So basically, this is my fill again, right? We don't think differently. Okay, we don't. Let's see if this works.
So we're locked, but there was a rec sensor up there.
You know why he's happy? Because we're at a wedding. And he said, I can open a bank with whiskey. And we said, nah. And he said, if I can succeed, I get free drinks for the entire night. And we were at a wedding, so we said, yeah, sure. So we filmed it, and he's happy because he gets free drinks. We think different. You shouldn't put, if you know we think differently, if we have an office with hackers, right? And then we get a new coffee machine. And it's one with RFID. You shouldn't do that. That doesn't work. It's just fucking 2 bytes. And then we have coffee for everybody, for free, the rest of our lives. It works awesomely. And there was even a little screen, so we tried to put hello world or hack the planet, but then the machine crashes and they have to come from the factory to restore it. So don't do stuff like that. But where I want to go is it's not just hackers who think differently. There are also like bosses who think differently. And I like that. Not always, but because sometimes it gets you fails. For instance, if you run a company with a lot of windmills connected, and you are in the US, and you're running this and all goes smoothly, and then somehow you find out you get hacked. So, ooh, scary, we got hacked, but nothing really happens. But you have to call a security company, right? So they did. Security company came and they said, how do you know you are hacked? And their answer was, well, our Windows machines are up to date. And this was never the case. Because we have a very lacking IT staff, and they have no time to update our machines. And now all our machines are up to date. So we're hacked, but can you look what they're doing? So investigation, blah, 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 and they found out they were mining Bitcoin. So they came back to the company, to the board, to the manager, and said, well, we found out they're mining Bitcoins. That's it? Yeah, that's it. Cool. Let them see there. Every machine was up to date because they didn't want any other Bitcoin mining hackers on the machine, so they fixed everything. Perfect. Let them be there. Doesn't bother us. Perfect. Brilliant. Brilliant. thinking different. Sorry? Blockchain power. Yeah, blockchain power. Yeah, fix it with blockchain. It's basically Rian probably who did it, right? Wow. Okay, getting insights here. Right, what do I have some more? Fails. Let's see. What is the ultimate weapon of the hacker? The mind. The Jedi mind. No. What is? Let me rephrase this. It's not the hacker. It's like, what is the most easy weapon to use if you want to get somewhere? No. Social engineering. And what do you use for social engineering if you do it the quickest? Who said phone? Number one. There you go. It's the phone. The phone is the best weapon. You just call. And if you do it right, you do it with caller ID. So you look up a company and you find out what their numbers are, and you put a fake phone number and you call and you put some tools on like this. Do you know this one? Yeah, Social Engineering Toolkit. It's from my good friend, you probably know as well, Dave Kennedy. And he's got a 2-minute short example on
He's
how
what's
it
known
works.
as a social engineer, or a people hacker. His craft is to dupe you into doing things and sharing information you probably shouldn't.
Can I just get your credit card number?
Some use it for illegal activity. In David's case, companies pay him to find out if employees are leaving the company vulnerable. He and his team show us how it's done. Step 1, spoof his number so it looks like he's calling from inside the company, and then call tech support.
Hello, you there? Hello?
Hi, this is Ken. How may I help you?
I was wondering if you can take a look at a website I'm trying to get to. It's for a big customer thing I'm working on for Monday, and I can't seem to get to the website from my computer.
Sure. What's the website? I'll see if I can get to it.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate the help. I mean, it could be a stupid thing. I'm really stuck with computers, but so it's www.survey. That's SURVEY -pro.com.
Yeah, I got a prompt to open. I just clicked open, and I'm at the site now.
Here's what the IT guy doesn't realize. By clicking that link, he's just given David full access to his computer.
Whoa, okay, that's weird. I just hit it and it works. It seems like it's working fine now. Awesome. I don't know what you did, man, but I really appreciate the help.
Hey, no problem. That was easy.
That was it?
That was easy.
We're on his computer right now.
Nice, right? It's that easy. Just use the phone. Try everything. So when you're in, how do you get passwords? Mimikatz? Mimikatz, always. But what's the better way? Ask. Put up a password change up sheet. This works. If you like to change your password, please fill in your name, the servers, your old password, and your preferred new password. Try this. It works. And I like the note. Come see me, Sean, you know? And then the next question we always get, yeah, it's stupid. We have those bring your device rules, but I can't bring my device, and I have an office iPad, and I go home and my kids can't play with it. Do you know why your kids can't play with your office iPad? Because reincarnation is not proven yet. That's why. It costs you a lot of iPad. And I always think people who do this are the kind of coworker you get in your head that always helps and always wants to be gentle and wants to do the right thing, but shouldn't be near computers. You know, a bit like these guys. Yes. These are the same guys that when I'm bored and I'm in a plane, I sometimes play around. So I found out there was something called Twitter scraper, so I played with it, just put one rule. Write card and number is in Twitter scraper. You get a lot of fun. A lot of fun. A lot of cards, but also this one. I really love this one. I'm not sure what it is. Is there someone from the US here? But a Nectar card? Yeah, is it good? It's a loyalty card, but it's pretty popular. Yeah. You find a lot of shit on that Nectar cards. It's really cool. This one, pretty nice. It asks for a DM for your network card. And you know what the reply is of those people? What's DM? Anyway, here's my card number. It's that easy. It's so much fun. This one also. Please DM us your ID number, customer number, and smart card number. My ID number, my customer number, my smart card number. It's that easy. This one also fun. Yeah. Can I see the back? I like your front. Yeah, sure. Fail. Right. And then we have something else. And it's basically not a fail because we all love them, but they make things happen that you're not too happy with. Do you know what I'm talking about? What do you love the most in your surroundings when you get home? Tranquility? No. No. Not family? No. Sorry? Animals. Yes, animals. They're very cute. But they also kill shit. You know, have you seen this? The biggest causes of damage to fiber networks. 1, animals. Unbelievable. Time Warner Cable had to replace 87 miles of cable in Western New York due to squirrels. Rats knocked out internet access for Virgin Media customers in parts of Scotland. Twice in 2 days. It's horrible, it's horrible. And there's this, I just saw this video, I think a day ago, and it's so brilliant. You have to see this. This is a woodpecker who finds a big Wi-Fi transmitter. Yeah, this is just the start. Wait for it. Wait for it. My Wi-Fi doesn't work.
Go ahead.
It's not loose. Fixed. 300 plus pounds. You know how big the bird is? Like this. Unbelievable. Right? Yeah, he had help. They made a lot of holes. What's this? Alexa, why do you use it? What do you use it for? Nothing, right. You ask, hey, Alexa, how's the weather? And she should say, look outside, you moron, right? But she doesn't. She says the weather in Fahrenheit. Yeah, brilliant. In the US, however, you use this. But again, people miss it because in the US, you know, right? You're out of milk and you say, Alexa, I'm out of milk. And the next day, Amazon Prime delivers milk or whatever, toilet paper. We forget or we are hacked by animals, right? And you know this one. This is the bird who ordered more than 10,000 rolls of toilet paper because he said, Alexa, I'm out of toilet paper. And now there are a lot of people here, because I did this slide last year, and they say, no, I don't believe this. It's real. I got a video.
Alexa, all light alarm. Okay. Okay.
Brilliant, right? Even the okay. And this is also killing us. And why? Because it's a DDoS of cat and dog pictures. That's why. This is clogging our bandwidth and people don't get it. There are even elderly people who are now mistakenly thinking that animals are being built by us. Or, well, let's just show it. It's so sad. It's sad, right? I'm very, very sad by this. Right, Phils. Hardware people in the room? Because I couldn't find enough hardware fill pictures. Just a few, like these USB keys. Yeah? Sorry?
This is amateur level.
Yeah, that's amateur.
Have a SATA drive where you put in 16 micro SD cards.
Yeah, I need pictures of those.
Just on AliExpress, you can buy them.
Yeah, just like on AliExpress, you buy stuff like this, right? It explodes when you plug it in. It's fun. It's not fireworks. It's just power supplies.
It smells better than fireworks.
It smells better. Well, if you're talking about smelling, what a brilliant bridge. How do you fix this? Well, like this. Right? This is how you fix it. But you mean more pictures like this, right? It's just sad. Oh. Okay, what do we have more? What's some fails? Oh yeah, buildings. Can buildings fail? Yes. Yeah. They're commercial display shitty things. Crashing. Right, fails. We do bug bounties, of course, at Zerocopter, so we have to do some bug bounty fails as well. But the first thing I thought was this t-shirt. I really like this. That's a new definition. I really like this. Clients, however, don't like this shirt. But they use this a lot, and it's killing us, you know. Other things that killing us is if you do responsible disclosure and you're in it for for cooperating with the hackers, then there's also the rule that says if you have fixed it, I may write about it, right? I may up my level by posting about the beautiful thing I found and how we fixed this together, and you are now safer as a company and you should share this data with other companies so everybody can get happier. It's difficult. It's very difficult. This is mostly the attitude they have. And I have a story from Jonathan Baumann, but I can't talk about it unless somebody in the audience calls out the name of the company, because I'm not allowed to. Who said IKEA? Thank you. Brilliant. Well, it was IKEA. And they scanned IKEA, of course, and they found some interesting domains, but he found the bathroom planner. And it's nice, bathroom planner. You can click together your own bathroom. Brilliant. And then you can create a PDF so that you can go to the store with all the components you clicked and then get them immediately. It saves you a lot of time and hassle. Brilliant. So he looked at the creation of the PDF and he decoded it. It was base 46. And he said, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I can put some stuff in there. So he tried image source, HH password. No, that doesn't work. No, it didn't work. No. So that's brilliant. However, if you put a notation file, it works. Yes. So then you get inject file your combination, etc password, thank you, IKEA. Can I get a bounty? No. IKEA had fixed this, and then I think it took 6 months of mailing back and forth before he was allowed to put this online. They don't want this. And a lot of companies still don't want it. If you don't want your stuff published, maybe you shouldn't do responsible disclosure. I don't know. But you should think about stuff like this before you go it. You should hug us like you mean it. Right? That's the most important thing. Right. APIs. Do I have a shirt? Oh, one more. APIs stand for what? No. No. Come on. No. 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 What's the sentence? Don't you know this one? It's so easy. No, it's this. Yeah, you laugh, but it's true. That's what APIs are for. Owning infrastructure. For instance, we were asked for a client to do a test of their monitoring system. So they had a new monitoring system in place and they want to see if they could detect hackers. So we were given shell accounts and we tried this. And we were like, oh, they have monitoring systems, so we should be very stealthy. And stealthy hacking, old way is just this, right? ls minl, go inside, look at the file, go back, go to the next one. Don't make any noise. Be as quiet as you can. And then the newer hackers say, oh, you just run a tool. Like, well, detected, gone, you know? So try it very slowly. And in the end, it worked, because we found a file which got some Chef data collector tokens in it. Do you know Chef? It's automation tooling. It publishes stuff and etc. And with this token, there was possible to do monitor information back to the server. That's cool. So what we tried is, can we do more than just other things? And we do it on the paths which the server already has to the monitoring server, so it shouldn't be detected. So we tried the token to see it would be accepted. It said, okay. So we tried if we could create our own notice, and it said, okay. It's that easy. So please, people, also remember to keep your APIs keys away from prying eyes. So don't just put them on the server because it's just a monitoring key. No, it could be very, very sensitive, and it's, again, a bit of a fail. Can we fix shit like this in the end? All the things? Yes, we can. But why? How do we start? Where do we start? Praying? Who said praying? No, somebody said praying. He gets a shirt. There you go. I think we should start here in the boardroom. But then if we try this, we try it mostly like this. Right? We talk about social engineering, cloud security, nation state attacks, smart blah, 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 blah. And then the board is like this, which doesn't work. So the board wants us to do like this. So who should we send? Yes. We should try this. No, and we should basically talk to them like we can map it to GDPR, because that's something they get. They get two things. They get GDPR, and they get if it costs money or are losing customers. So business impact is very important for them. So we should try to move it a bit to the GDPR style. We should try to talk about maturity instead of attacks and stuff like this. We are now here. We want to go here. And otherwise the business impact will go like this, so let's put it that way. If we can go there, it works. So that's one group, the board, and then there's another group we have to help, and those are? Not the users. Not the managers. IT, no. 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 Whoa. Developers. We need to help them a bit. And we need to tell them that if they have a perfectly aligned SDLC or security washing street or whatever they call it, that every tool in there is brilliant, but the maximum you get out of it is 50%. Because a tool doesn't know if your social security number is legal on that page or if it's illegal on that page. Tools don't know that. So there's 50% flaws and there's 50% business logic flaws. So we still need manual verification. And then they say, oh yeah, but we do a pen test. Right, you do a pen test once every year, and then every 2 weeks you develop new software and you publish it. So there's a little bit of gap. So look further than that, look at responsible disclosure, look at bug bounties, and try your way over there. And then people say, right, let's do bug bounties and put 300,000 hackers on there. That doesn't work, because your IT staff and your developers will be like this. So please also take in consideration how many reports can you handle. It's very, very important. And if you do all those brilliant things, also keep in mind that they have to fit in your stupid model. And I really hate this slide because this is really a marketing slide, but this. Ugh. But it has to be in there. I'm sorry, I can't help it. And if you're a developer, please look at the brilliant software like, for instance, this, OWASP SKF, right? Security Knowledge Framework. From start to finish, it will help you, advise you, and guide you for free in whatever you're developing and how you get it secure from a start. Try this stuff. Don't be like these guys. Yay, so do. Because if you're still in this level, then you're high up in this one. And I really love this one. The cybersecurity pain skill. It's brilliant. If you're in red, you become a case study. You use passwords like root store, admin Kelvin. We're fine. And we just fired the CISO. You know, try to get more to the left. Proactive, not enough stuff, 2FA, pairing, whatever, do it. And you will be more relaxed. You can just enjoy life. You know, if I want to enjoy life, I do like my friend Dave, this. You know? Look at a good movie. You know what the movie is, right? Come on, the beeper is from? Hackers. Brilliant. Brilliant. I don't have any more shirts, but you get a beer. And what's the thing behind it? Thank you. Sorry? True. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But it's nice, yeah? It's nice. Nice things, relaxations. Let's try it that way. Nice things, relaxation. And you said hackers. I want to touch on one more point before I leave, and that is this one, HackRight. I don't know if you know it, but I'm told you in front that I'm a member of the Guild of the Grumpies, where we help younger kids. HackRight is something we developed together with police and how do you call it, prosecution's office. If somebody is between 13 and 21, I think, and they are arrested for a cybercrime, and it's their first one, they don't go to jail, but instead they go to companies like us. They have to write what they did, they have to talk to the people they hacked and look at the damage they caused, they have to work on papers with us, they have to learn how we do pen testing, how you can ethically move instead of using it for the wrong side. And the idea is to get them straight and to get them back into the market. This is something you can join as a company. It's HackRight. If you have places like for developers, for security people, for whatever, and you want to do it, it's really, really cool to do it. You will learn a lot as well, and you will work together with prosecutions officers, police, etc., to just help a kid go back. So try to do it. We signed. It was fun. And what I want to say, of course, as always, as we close, is please have fun. And yeah, you are hackers, so just hug yourself. Thank you very much. Moet je maar aandoen.
Hallo. Thank you so much, Edwin, for this great talk. Tomorrow, HackRight will have a talk as well. Floor Jansen and Johanna Spoormans will be here. So if you want to learn more about HackRight, tomorrow afternoon, there will be a talk. So look at the schedule and yeah, check that out. So now we are at the end of the talks, and now we're going to do a computer quiz, and it's made by Walter, who started off the evening after my opening. So I would like to ask Walter to come in front, and yeah, if you're like an old computer guy or you like cool stuff, then this is for you, and it's hopefully a lot of fun. So if you want to join in, stay, and Walter will do the quiz on computer stuff. team waarschijnlijk computervragen antwoorden. Weet ik niet. Gaat hij allemaal uitleggen. Misschien op papiertjes. Misschien moeten we even allemaal naar voren komen. Dat het wat gezellig wordt. Ik vraag het even. Als de mensen wat naar voren komen, dat we het een beetje hier in het middenblok zo... Psychic. Wil je deze? Nee, pak die al. Jullie mogen allemaal wat dichterbij komen. Het wordt wat later. Mensen gaan slapen, mensen gaan drinken aan de bar. Dus kom gezellig hier, zo, gezellig bij. Intiem. Kom gewoon eens lekker hier zitten, zo. Kan je het goed zien? Ja, sportief. Superleuk. Ik ga jou omgeven. Dames en heren, we gaan beginnen met Giga's Nerd Quiz. Dus een hartelijk applaus voor Walter en Ivana.
Dus dit mag in het Nederlands. Or are there people that don't speak Dutch? Nee! Oké, nou de antwoorden mogen in het Nederlands of in het Engels. Ik heb een nerdquiz aan elkaar gedraaid. Het is een experiment. Ik doe wel vaker pubquiz en muziekquizzen, maar nerdquiz voor het eerst. Dus ik ben benieuwd. Je moet er wel een beetje mee rekening mee houden dat ik natuurlijk een beetje een old fart ben. Dus misschien dat het allemaal wat oude kennis is. Ik hoop dat jullie een beetje mee overweg kunnen. Jullie kunnen teams maken van, laten we zeggen, max 5 man. Mijn lieftallige assistente heeft antwoordformulieren. En de eerste ronde is meteen een plaatjesronde. En daar krijg je gewoon een velletje voor uitgereikt. Die plaatjesronde hoef je pas in te leveren na ronde 4. We doen straks 1 pauze. Dan kijken we wat na, hebben we een tussenstand. En daarna nog 4 rondes en dan is het afgelopen. Er is geen minimum teamgrootte. Tenzij je 1 een minimum vindt. Er zijn ook weer bij mijn liefstallige assistenten een paar pennen. Dit is vraag 1. Dus dat krijg je een velletje van... Ja, we hebben tijd genoeg. Relax. Oh. I will have to switch to English. Yes. Everybody who wants to compete has a form, I hope. Oh. Okay, so you get some time for round 1 during round 2 and 3. So every round has a theme. Round 2, theme, IT. 1. What key combination do you use to normally exit Emacs? So I don't mean Control Z, kill all Emacs. I mean the No, you're not allowed to use any lookup devices. Most of the time, people who don't use Emacs learn just this key sequence to get out of. Okay. Question 2. Name this game. I think it was most popular on the Commodore 64. Yeah, that's really old shit. Question 3. Once upon a time, Microsoft had a version of Unix. What was it called? In fact, they were the first ones in Europe to have a commercial Unix version, I believe. And it was, for a while, the best-selling Unix in Europe. It was not in my talk, no. No, just, yeah. It was popular for PCs, but not so much in universities. It was based on AT&T Unix. 4. What does the SU mean in the Unix command SU? So it's not what you might think the first time you read this.
That's a 4-letter word, right?
Five, there is this kind of mythical machine language instruction that's called HCF. What does it do? There's also a television drama series about old school computing that has the same name. Six, what's Iomega's super floppy called? So this company had what they believe was the successor to the floppy drive. Many of them would get a click of death. So you could store 100 megabytes on them, but then they would just fail. Welke van de Oh, which variant? I think if you have one of them, fine. No, one is enough. 7. It's actually a movie question. What was the name of the computer, the NORAD computer in War Games? Number 8. What does modem stand for? Number 9. So if you don't know, you can still guess. Put in chronological order from old to new. Firefox, Chrome, Safari and Opera. There was even one before Mosaic. And the last IT question. Which YouTube video was the first one that hit 1 billion page views? I think it was a couple of years ago. Right, so we will go on with the next round. You don't have to give us any forms yet, and you still have time to look at the picture of the first round. The third round has nerd stuff, where there's a sequence of things, and you just need to continue the series. So which thing or character or letter or number or whatever comes next? Yeah, just one item. So in this case, it's one letter. X, K, C, something. For question 2, I need a digit, and you cannot use a calculator. No calculators, right? 3, hackers. Yes, I am a criminal. My crime is that of... It's the Hacker Manifesto. Number 4, Cult of the Dead. Zombies. Number 5, Kilo, Mega, Giga, Terra, Beta. Something. This is like stuff that you won't normally use, these big numbers. But number 6, hacker conferences. I want the one that follows this. Yes. The next in this sequence. Seven, physical, data link, network, transport. Political is a way, is I think if you go to political, you're missing 2. No, 3. Then number 8, an electronics question. V equals I times, or U equals I times, if you like. Number 9. Everybody knows foo and bar, but what's after bar?
En de volgende zit ook ergens. Nou, bar, meestal bar. Die zit daar. Heeft het antwoord op deze openbaar? Of kebab.
And the last one from this round, a bit of SMTP, Halo, Milfrom, RCPT2, and what's next? No, not an extended halo, no. But with the extended halo, it would be the same. Right, that's round number 3. So we'll go on to round number 4, and after round 4 we have a little break. Round number 4 is a pictures round, but the pictures will... What? This is probably very old computers. Yes, it's very old computers. Name the yeah, this is nonsense. Name the computer. What's this? I think it was the first one with handwrite recognition, but I'm not 100% sure. My God, how many were produced? I also have one, by the way. Yeah, I photoshopped away the logo with my lead photoshopping skills. I guess that you would get half a point if you get the brand at least. Number 2. So it's the thing with the couch.
God, do we have to say which one?
I guess the model number will be difficult, but the brand. I looked it up, and an Apple iPhone 5 is faster than this supercomputer. 3. With a terrible keyboard. But cheap. Number 4 is a brand that also still exists. They make games. This is the early game console. Number 5. This system had the micro tapes, and also there was a video. There was a chip inside with the same character set as teletext. Well, the manufacturer happened to make these SAA something chips. Yeah. So this is about 1980. Now, this is a computer you might have or have worked on. This is probably a computer you've never had in your possession, because only very few were made. Number 7. No. Yeah, from the Unix factory that combined Unix with graphics. I'm not really sure if they still exist. Probably beaten by cheap hardware Linux. Yeah, I have an inflatable system at home. One of these. 9. This is like war games times. And number 10 is a system that also runs Unix and is beautifully made. The system is a square box made of magnesium, and if you open it up, it's even pretty on the inside. Yeah. Well spotted. Okay, so we'll collect your bits of paper and we'll tally up for the, how do you say, the scoreboard after round 4. And also the first round we will also take. It's the first 4 rounds. Got a Linux port? I don't know. Oh, really? Oh. But there's no way you can get one of these. I'll give you some answers. So the picture round. Well, you don't have the pictures anymore, but there were pictures from Doctor Who, Star Trek: The Next Generation. I don't believe I have the pictures here on this. Oh wait, maybe I can. This is Blake's 7, very short-lived UK series. Red Dwarf, Futurama, Third Rock from the Sun, Star Trek original, Rick and Morty, Thunderbirds, and the Jetsons. Now, I hope I know the answers. From the top of my head. How do you quit Emacs? Control X, Control C. This was Impossible Mission. Microsoft had a Unix, and all Unixes end with an X, and this one is called Xenix. And it starts with an X as well, yeah. SU is not super user, but if you read the manual page, it says substitute user, because you can substitute yourself for any other user, including root. HCF was a instruction that would get the processor in an infinite loop, and it would overheat and destroy itself. And people call it the hold and catch fire instruction. And there's also a television series named Hold and Catch Fire. Iomega Super Floppy, Super Drive, Zip Drive. Sorry, which one? LS120. Jazz, yeah, that was later, Jazz Drive. The NORAD computer, that was called Whopper. WOPR. Colossus is a computer that they invented in Bletchley Park to crack Enigma. Modem is short for modulator, demodulator. And this I need to look up to be absolutely sure I give you the correct answer. So the first one was Opera. 1996, thereabouts. Then Safari, 2003. Firefox, 2004. Chrome, 2008. YouTube video. What? Psy Gangnam Style, yes. The series, XKCD. 3.14, 15, 9, 2, 6, 5, 3. Yes, I'm a criminal. My crime is that of curiosity. The hacker group was called Cult of the Dead Cow. Got one cow. Kilo, mega, giga, tera, peta, exa. Jota, zeta. Yeah, you Googleplex. BNOS only goes to 10 to the 18th. Hey, hip, hal, what the heck, har, oom. Physical data link, network, transport, session layer. Then we have financial, political. V equals I times R. Yeah, the foo bar baz.
Yay!
What? Sta? Sna. Snafu. Kux, yeah, bar, Kux. Sissy, that's from games. Hello, mail from RCPT2, and then you get the data command. Name the computer. This was the Apple Newton message pad, or Apple Newton. Cray 1. Cray. ZX80. Sinclair ZX80.
No, no.
No?
It's a Sinclair ZX81. I have both computers. I own both.
Oh yeah, sorry. It's an 81. Yeah.
Thank you.
Very good. Sorry. Atari 2600. So this is my Eindhoven connection. This is Philips P2000T in this case. This is actually a prototype. Commodore. No, the 128 is not a prototype. It's the Commodore 65. So this was meant to be the successor to the Commodore 64. This is a Digital Equipment Corporation PDP-8. Yeah, that's the cute Silicon Graphics 02. That's I have to say this was the 8/E, but 8 is 8. The IMSI 8080. And this is the next cube, made by Steve Jobs. Let's see how the scoring goes. In due of time, we'll have the score listing when it's done, and I'll just continue with the next round, right? So I hope you all have paper. In this round, you're going to hear things. I have sound clips. Oh, yeah, so don't forget to write the team name on your new piece of paper. So you get to hear sound clips from fictional characters, and they say something, and they can be from a book, series, film, or more. If you know the name of the series it's coming from, you get half a point, but if you know the name of the character saying the actual thing, you get a full point. So let's try number 1.
42. It was a tough assignment.
It's not coming through the speakers.
42. It was a tough assignment. 42. tough assignment.
Is that sort of doable? Sorry? Number 2.
I am not a number. I am a free man.
Maybe the people in the back now. Who knew this? Who? I'm impressed. That was a tough one. Number 3.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
Just a sec.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
It's an actor who plays this, but the person who plays, is he fictional? Or is he a god? Number 5.
Greetings programs!
So the text you heard was greetings programs. Did you hear it again, or?
Greetings programs!
Try it first with the one we.
Greetings programs!
Six. The character. Well, if you know the series, then you get half a point. Number 7.
I know Kung Fu. I know Kung Fu.
Eight.
It's a Unix system. I know this. It's all the files of the whole park.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows who the kid is called, but just write down the series.
It's a Unix system. I know this. It's all the files of the whole park.
How many assholes we got on this ship anyhow? Yo! I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
Keep firing, assholes!
Very obscure.
How many assholes we got on this ship anyhow? Yo! I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
Keep firing, assholes!
And the last one. I hope.
How many assholes we...
I have an audio file, but it doesn't. Let's try it another way.
What do you mean? African or European swallow?
Yeah, so that was number 10 again.
What do you mean? African or European swallow?
Okay, and after all this fun movie literature stuff, we now go to the technical stuff. Phew. Number 1, put in order of increasing melting point. Gallium, mercury, silver and gold. So the first one will be the one to melt at the lowest temperature. All at the same pressure. Number 2, name this car thingy. So you can write down the Dutch name.
Does it have to be in English?
No, it can also be in Dutch. Three, name an element with an atomic number of at least 100. So I think we have about 8 or so, 10, no more even, 18. Yes, in decimal. Well, they're all named after famous people and places where they find these elements, so maybe you can use your... Yeah. No, your anus is this question. Name the 2 planets in our solar system without moons. Number 5. What shape does the DNA molecule have? How do we call that shape? Six. How do you would you normally call C8H10N4O2? There are a few logical options. That would be giving away and the druk. Another chronological question, put it in chronological order from old to new. Linux 1.0. The Trojan Room webcam. There was the webcam at the Trojan Room in the UK that showed you how much coffee there was left. The first spam email sent. And the release of the ICQ program. No, IRC was before ICQ. Sorry. Question 8. How many ohms is this resistor? And I don't want to know how much it can deviate from what you think it might be. I just want the intended ohmage of this resistor. No. So it's brown, black, and green. Number 9, what is the element? What? Still with this?
Brown, grey, black, grey, green, grey.
9. What is the element polonium named after?
Don't have to worry about aerodynamics here.
And the last one. What is Globalnaya Navigaciona Sputnikovaya Sistema, also known as, or what is it? You could describe it in one word probably, or one acronym. Right, so round 7 is a special round. First of all, I don't know if this is good news or bad news, but we'll let you off a little bit earlier because I figured out I only have 7 rounds instead of 8. I thought I had 8, but I have 7. So, but round 7 is quite a difficult round, but it's also a music sound round. The first 5, you get sounds from a game. The question is, what game? And it really gets hairy for the last 5, in which you hear a sound associated with an operating system. Let's start with the games. Is the mic somewhere there? Okay, great. 1. You shouldn't be calling out all of the possible games because they could be numbers 2 to 5. Number 2. Number 3.
I don't think you should drink that. It looks bad for you.
Nonsense. It makes me feel great. Smarter, more aggressive. I feel like I could. Like I could. Like I could. Take on the world.
Over het hele spel of over het opnemen? Heel lang. Number 4. And number 5.
De eerste special text adventure.
All right, I think those 5 are doable, but next is name the OS. So this will be quite hard, I suppose. Anyway, number 6. Again. You can also guess. Guessing doesn't cost you any points. if you do the right form. Yeah, well, you need the version. Yeah. Well, not the build number, but number 7. Number 8. Yes, this is a startup sound. Number 9. And the last one.
Laat ons gewoon in.
I was about to start with the answers, but let's first wait until we collect the sheets. Yeah.
Maar we zijn hier op lekker. Of bedoel je dat je niet de formulieren ophouden?
I'll get the forms from you.
Damn it. No! Take on me is ook goed.
Let's look at the correct answers. The fictional characters.
42. It was a tough assignment. It was a tough assignment.
So this was from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but who is saying this is Deep Thought.
I am not a number. I am a free man.
This comes from a 1960s television series, The Prisoner. And the guy who says this is the prisoner, or number 6. Also known from a hard rock.
How do we get this correctly? Because the series and the name of the character.
Yeah, so if you said the prisoner, then you get the full point.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
That was Hall 2001 in Space Odyssey 2001.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
Sorry, Hall 9000 in 2001. This was the dude in the Big Lebowski. Sorry? This is from Tron. It was not the Master Control program, but Flynn. I saw a lot of interesting spellings. If it looked like Tweaky, I gave it a point. It's from Buck Rogers. Yes.
I know Kung Fu.
That was Neo in the Matrix.
It's a Unix system. I know this. It's all the files of the whole park.
Yeah, Jurassic Park. I have to look at the correct name. There were 2 people who said Lex, so I gave them full points. The person is called Alexis Lex Murphy. The little girl.
It's a Unix system.
How many assholes we got on this ship anyhow? Yo! I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes. Keep firing, assholes!
Yeah, so this is Spaceballs with... it is actually Dark Helmet. Some people said just Lord Helmet, but I gave them all the points. Oh, and the last one...
Always have coffee when I watch Radar.
Of course you do, sir.
They jammed the radar.
What do you mean? African or European swallow?
The person who said that was King Arthur in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Technical stuff, melting point. Well, the first one is mercury. That melts at room temperature. Gallium a little bit more. If you hold it in your hand, it will melt. And then it's gold, and then it's... Am I saying this right? Then it's gold. No, silver, and then... Yeah, you would expect gold to be easier malleable, but it is silver and then gold. This is, there were different names, but anything that looked like camshaft, knock and os, knock thingy, I gave points to. Name an element with an atomic number of at least 100. I didn't see many of them, but I have the list here. So it's fermium, mendelevium, nobelium, lawrencium, rutherfordium, dapnium, seaborgium, borium with an H, hessium, meitnerium, darmstadtium, röntgenium, copernicum, nihonium, fluorovium, moscovium, livermorium, tennessine, and oganesson. A what? A neutron star. Yeah, it has the element, but it's not the name of the element.
Uranium's element number is 238. So
That's the weight.
No, it's the weight.
238.
Yeah, it's the weight. That's not the number. Yeah.
most of it is neutron. It's neutron.
Yeah, name the 2 planets in our solar systems without moons, Mercury and Venus. The DNA has a double helix structure. I saw some interesting answers to this one. It's not THC, it is caffeine. And this nobody got right. And the first, let's see. Oh, maybe I have to re-look into if I did it right. I have to double check. But the answer is, the first was spam email, but that was on a DECnet network in 1978. Yeah. It was a guy from DEC who mailed to 400 people. The webcam came in 1991, Trojan Room webcam. And 3 years later, we had Linux 1.0 in 1994, and ICQ is from 1996. Brown is 1, black is 0, so it starts with 1 0, and the green is 5, so it has 5 zeros after that. So it's a 1 with 6 zeros, so that's 1 mega ohm, 1 million ohm. Polonium, that was discovered by Marie Curie, and she named it after her country, Poland. And this is the Russian GLONASS GPS-like system. Let's see. Then that was Pac-Man. Super Mario Kart. Sorry? No. If you have Super Mario. Google lied to me.
I think that it looks bad for you.
And this is the starting sequence of Day of the Tentacle. Still dreaming about it. It's Tetris. Pong. This is Windows 10. Windows XP. This could be any Windows from 3.1 to 3.11 and NT and Dit is Ubuntu, ja. Ubuntu vanaf 6.10 tot 18.04 had dit liedje. Dat is Windows 7. Right, let's get the results in.
Herkende nerd. Ja. Ik heb laatst een keer moeten kijken naar de oude 2000 foto's. Dat is ook van mensen zijn heel erg veranderd. Helemaal niets. Ik heb nog wel foto's met een matje. Ik zou het draaien met een hier een staart. Wel met een staart. Maar ja, dat was 20 kilo geleden. Ja, dat was maar 20 kilo geleden. Heel goed. Deze week was het 63. Ja, nou nu ik ben 75. Daarna kwam het nog even. Het kan maar ook zijn dat je op de uiteindelijk gewoon, je moet gewoon iets hebben op een national laboratory, want dat is inderdaad de dus ja, door een national laboratory. Ja, wat we ran for 240 something. 235, 238? Ja, whatever. Ik stond er aan het praten. Die had je dan meteen herkend. Ja, maar we gaan ook een schuitje. Dan kun je gewoon heel helemaal gaar worden. Maar daar hebben we al een beetje van, dus we kunnen hem ook echt gewoon inzetten.
I do want to find how badly we lost before I go to bed.
Wie has results?
General failure. Why is he reading my hard drive?
Yeah, we don't have 15 places, but so column C is the end result of the after the first round, and D is the total. For all the rounds, sorry? Yeah, so the first is after 4 rounds, and the last one is after 7 rounds. Then we have team Geen Idee. Nog een Edwin. Henk. Yeah, we don't have anybody on 42, unfortunately. Also an ex-eco. Yeah, I don't know. I can't recall at what line I started, so I don't know when we have everybody. And he's actually the number 1. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed. It's only at this point that I realized that I didn't bring any prizes with me. So you have to do with my...
We'll take the laptops, thank you. We'll take this projector, no problem. I'll pay us a round of bitterballs.
Right. Thanks for being here, and have a good evening.
Okay. That concludes our night for tonight. So I hope you had fun. And yeah, have fun in the bar. And then we'll see you tomorrow.
Als jij zo hoog wil zetten, mag je dat voor mij doen hoor. Succes ermee. Ja, succes. We zijn alleen raam omhoog. Ik ga niet tegen. Ik wil wel die plots uit de zaal. Dat we gewoon even de zaal licht aan. Ja. Hoe gaat het zo? Ja, dat is wel blubber dan.